Right, hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Indie Plug. Today I'm joined by lead singer Pete from a new wave indie synth band, the Independent Music Club. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. You?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. Still furloughed,
Yeah,
but
same here, mate.
the luxury life.
Yeah.
Well, both your band genre and name were a mouthful to say, but before we get on to the band, what are some of your earliest music memories?
For me, it would have to be when I was growing up. I got two older sisters, so a lot of it was sort of late '80s pop. So you were talking about Kylie and Jason. There's the earliest sort of memories I can remember. So all that Stock Aitken and Waterman stuff. But through me dad, it was Fleetwood Mac, Dire Straits, and all that sort of rock stuff, the Stones. And my mum was the Beatles and Burt Bacharach, really. So it's just a mixture of all them sort of music growing up. And until I got into music myself, which was sort of in the mid 90s, really, and it was where all the Britpop stuff was kicking off. So loads of bands to listen to then.
Yeah, well, normally when we have guests on, it seems that the early music memories do come from people around you rather than yourself. Your band is based on the South Coast, in and around the Southampton area. Is this where you grew up?
Yeah, I still live in Southampton, yeah. So born and bred here. So for all my sins.
Do you feel that where you grew up influenced your music in any way?
No, not at all. I wouldn't say that Southampton has got a brilliant music scene like Brighton, London, or places up north like Liverpool and Manchester. It's pretty poor, really. I mean, even these days, it's got even worse. So, there's only a few places you can actually play. I don't think Southampton's famous for producing a lot of bands.
No, I couldn't name you any, I'm afraid.
What
But
about Craig David?
well, that's one then.
Yeah, that's
Of,
about it.
of course, you formed your band in 2017, the Independent Music Club. What's the story behind the name, and how did it come about?
The name, it was one of them. We were in a band beforehand, and I never chose the name. It was with different members, but I always wanted to have this sort of collective feel instead of just being like a group. And I was toying around with names, and it was like social club and stuff like that. And I suddenly ended up coming to independent. We want to be independent, and then obviously music says itself. So that's how it just sort of come, really. Some people shorten it to IMC because it's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm happy with either one, really.
So, how did the band come about? How did you form?
So me, the drummer Daryl, and the bass player Dan, we were in an original band together beforehand, and we met through. Literally, it was, I think it's be in my band or joinmyband.com many years ago when that was first starting, and we got together then. We're in a band together for about, I'd say, 6 years, and then it sort of fizzled out. But we always knew we had a connection, and we always wanted a synth player in the band. We never had one before. We were just a generic rock band, just a four-piece. And again, it was join my band. We put an advert out, and the synth player Lee answered the call. And as soon as we got in the rehearsal room, really everything sort of clicked, and we went, "Oh, that's what synths sound like."
That's quite interesting, actually, because I interviewed the Covesets quite recently, and that's kind of how they formed. And obviously, you've got an upcoming gig supporting them, so that's
Yeah.
quite interesting. There's so many different subgenres within the indie music scene, and new wave indie synth is yet another one of those subgenres. I haven't heard of it before, and obviously you've touched on it a little bit. But to anyone who doesn't know what it entails, how would you describe it?
I don't really know what it entails. We just make music that sounds good to us. We don't try and go after a genre. People want to pigeonhole us in whatever category they want. When you upload stuff on the Spotify, they always ask you what genre you want to be. And you're like, is it classic rock? Is it rock? Is it indie? Is it this? Is it that? And it's just like, look, it's music. We just make it. So all of us are really influenced by either late 70s music or early 80s music where synths come into it. So bands like Tears for Fears, Depeche Mode, Talk Talk are a big influence. So bands like that use synthesizers in a quite experimental way instead of, not as much as a poppy sort of way, really.
Well, when I was doing my research, I looked quite a lot into subgenres and stuff because obviously I've never heard of synth indie, but I came across other ones, quite weird ones actually, like anti-folk, Nintendo core, and
Hey,
also I found out one called math rock, which I've got the definition right here, is characterized by complex, atypical, rhythmic structures, including irregular stopping and starting, counterpoint, odd time signatures, angular melodies, and extended, often dissonant chords. It bears similarities to post rock. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound interesting to me.
I
But
don't think that's going to get me off my feet, to be honest.
if you weren't a new wave indie synth band, is there a genre you would have liked to explore instead?
Um, I've always been into sort of late 80s, early 90s hip hop and trip hop sort of stuff. So that's always interested me, but I'm not cool enough to pull that off. You know, you've
Well,
got to have some swagger to pull that off. But yeah, problem is you get into a band and you sort of fall into either two categories really. You're an experimental band or you're a rock band basically. And I like to think of us somewhere in between the middle of them.
well, it's good to be experimental because obviously your sounds of the songs you make always differ. But from, anyways, on to your formative years. From what I read on Spotify, it seems like you spent a lot of your first few years recording your extensive list of songs. How many songs did you end up with in the end before your debut EP?
I'm pretty sure there was about 18 or 19 songs that were fully tracked. There may be a couple with just no vocals in it, just a scratch vocal. We spent a lot of time just kind of figuring it out as we went along. Really, you know, we got a couple of rooms together and sort of built our own little studio and learned as we went along. So you know, you get as the time went on, we got more efficient and better at recording. So yeah, we did spend a lot of time up there just trying to get everything right. And so I've even got songs now that are still from that period that have not even seen the light of day, that are tracked sessions, but they're just sat dormant.
Well, I have to ask, was there any point during your formative years when you were producing these songs, recording them, that you had a loss of creativity? Like, was there ever a time you got writer's block?
Oh, I always so it's a weird one for me because I'm the songwriter in the band. I've always been writing songs since I was young. So as any writer knows, you do get a bit of block every now and again. Um, I find not to try and force it. If I try and force it, then whatever I'm going to do is not going to be up to any good standard, really. So I put the guitar down and maybe try something else. Try, I don't know, coming up with a loop or something and going in a totally different way. But when we were recording, my head was solely focused on recording the songs. So I wasn't even worried about writing the next song. You see what I mean? It was so entrenched in mixing and recording and everything else that actually never wrote a song, I don't think, for about a year, just because everything else was taking its toll. And then once that was dusted, it was only really this year again that I started sitting down and writing and demoing songs for the new EPs to come.
2 years after your formation, your debut EP, Swings By, in June of 2019, is named Restless Souls. After production of your substantial list of songs, why did these songs, out of all the rest, make it onto your EP?
As I say, we spent a long time recording the 18, 19 songs, and we just tried to fit 5 songs that would meld together quite well. Our newest songs, Stargaze and stuff like that, they were all recorded at the same time. We didn't think they just fitted quite well on the EP itself. So there's a lot more, I'd say, more beats and computerized music in them songs that we just thought, yeah, they go a lot better together. Maybe not some of our better songs, well, whatever they are. You know, everyone has their favourites. So it was literally, yeah, what songs sounded best together and what flowed as in an EP. That was the only reason why they were all on there.
And how about the timing of a release? Is there ever a perfect time to release new content?
You'd have to speak to our manager about that. He'd tell you everything about releasing and the build up and all that. To us, it's just do the music, get it done, and once we're happy with it, then release it. I don't think, is there a time now to release music? So I know there used to be certain windows in the year. Is it March and then November or something to release an album? But I think people just release when they want to now.
I think if I was an artist, I find it quite hard to build up to a release. Whenever I do something, I just want to release it. Do you ever get that?
Oh yeah, you've got there's 4 of us in the band, so some people are impatient and want it out straight away, and some people like to just say, "Oh, is that quite right? Is that not quite right?" And in the end, someone's got to make a decision. So no, this is it. Everyone's happy with that. We're not going to keep going over it. Let's get it out and let's get it done. And once it's out, there's no going back. It's out there. It's on the internet. Everyone can have their own opinion about it. And the things you get precious about, you just got to let it go.
Well, a song within your debut EP that caught my attention was Not This Time. If I were to compare this to any former artists, like bigger bands in the past, I'd probably link it to New Order. But at the same time, I feel like it's a lot different to that because you've put elements of Britpop into it, maybe like a Verve sound to it. What artists do you feel that have influenced the first EP the most?
So we've all got a different collection of artists we like. As I say, our bass player, he loves early Genesis and prog stuff and stuff like that. I've got my experimental side, the hip hop side of it, but I was a massive Oasis fan when I was growing up, so that's going to be inside me. Our keyboard player, he's really into the 80s stuff with the synths and everything, so that's going to come out. And so say a drummer, he's got a wide range of stuff that he listens to, so it's just a melting pot. When I write the songs, I write them and bring them in, but I let them have their own ideas on top of it and see what works and everything else. So we are a collective in that sense. So it's everyone's ideas that come up with it, really.
And how about you? What is your favourite song from the debut EP and why?
My favourite would probably have to be Questions. It was an old demo that I'd done a few years before the band, which I used to send our drummer, just send him little demos, and he happened to mention it. He went, "What about this demo?" And it did sound really like a New Order song because it had heavy guitar in it and a lot of space. And we sort of changed it when we got in the rehearsal rooms. The melody and the chords are exactly still the same. But I just remember when we were in the recording process of it, I'd come across the backing vocals that I'd done, and it just changed the whole chorus. And it was just like, oh, wow, that sounds brilliant. So it's always been one of my favourites.
Your next release did not come until the turn of the year, but we saw the release of 2 singles early in 2020 that both came with music videos. The music video for your first single prior to your debut EP, called Photograph, involves endless throwing of paint onto a photograph. Is there any hidden meaning behind this?
I'm not sure. I never had nothing to do with the video. It was a partner of ours that done it for us, and he's all into Jackson Pollock paintings and everything else. And he just said, "I got an idea, and let me have a go at it." So it's open to interpretation, really. You can make any meaning of it or what you want, but it's just someone throwing a bit of paint on a photograph, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would say the same, but I always think there's got to be a meaning behind everything.
Everything does has a meaning and everything has an intention, but I think some things are better left to interpretation.
Good answer. Of course, we have not only seen the release of 2 singles in 2020 thus far, but also a second EP. This one's called Halcyon Hearts. I hope I've said that right.
Yeah.
And you only have to read the title and see the EP artwork to know what the spacey, synthy mood continues, which is present within the first debut EP. What was the creative process behind this album?
Well, all these songs were from the original sessions of when we recorded Restless Souls, and they just seem to fit a more thoughtful kind of atmosphere than, say, Restless Souls, which was a bit more up tempo and a bit more electronic. Obviously, we open with All I Need, which is basically just a love song. But yeah, it was a harder EP to mix and get it to sit right than the previous one. We spent a lot more time on that one, Halcyon Hearts, and I was quite happy with it in the end. You know, there's quite a few tracks that are all different from each other on there.
So when you produce your songs, do you write the lyrics first or produce the music first?
Don't get me started on lyrics. The other members in the band, they go off their nut because I'm constantly changing it. I'll never have a finished lyric until I'm about to record it. So sometimes they don't even know what the title of the song is. It could change titles 3 or 4 times, or the title of the song could be set straight away. It's always the music first with me, always. So I will come up with a melody or a chord progression, which I like, and then I will sing scat vocals on it, gobbledygook basically, and then I'll demo it on my own computer at home, put some drums on it just to flesh it out, and then I'll send that to all the guys in the band, get their feedback on it, and then they get familiar with the song, the tempo, and then when we get in the rehearsal room, things could change a little bit, you know, new ideas, different people and stuff like that. And then once recording's done, my vocals are always the last thing to be done, and the lyrics are with it.
I always find it interesting to learn the meanings behind things, like I touched on earlier. Is there an overall meaning behind this EP, or any songs in particular where there's a song that has a deeper meaning than the rest?
I would say Running Against the Rainstorm is my favourite lyric on that EP. It's just a journey of about 2 people, could be friends, could be lovers, and basically just the world we live in is sometimes not the nicest place to live in, and especially with everything that's gone on over the last few months. It's basically just say, look, don't worry, I've got you, you got me. We're going to get through this together, and we're going to run through the rainstorm, basically.
Yeah, that's good meaning. I'll give you that one. But for me, Give It Up is my personal favourite, because I feel that it shows the strength in quality of your band the most. I say that because every song has strong vocals and a perfect blend of synth mixing, but this is the first song that I really feel that the guitar really shone. And although the guitar is a key element in a lot of your songs, this is the song that really emphasised this for me and shows your band's ability to use a wide range of instruments in each song. Would you agree that the diversity within your band helps you differ from the rest of the indie music industry?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, a lot of people say we sound, they wouldn't say current, we'd sound like a throwback, basically, from great artists of the 80s, you know, that type of, I don't know, I think there's a bit of a stadium rock emphasis sometimes about us, you know, with the likes of Simple Minds and I suppose a little bit of splashes of U2 in there occasionally. But I'm the guitarist in the band, so I just sometimes don't want to play all the time. And I'd rather play interesting stuff than just thrashing it out sometimes. And in Give It Up, I'd say that is, if you'd say a stereotypical Beatles song is We Can Work It Out, I would say Give It Up is our stereotypical song that sounds like us. It's quite moody, drawing the verses, and it's a little guitar part, but the synths are really riding the song. And then when it comes to the chorus, it's a rock song, basically. And yeah, it's always been a favourite of ours to play live.
Is that perhaps your kind of Wonderwall of a band?
I wouldn't. I would not know that. It depends. You could think that a certain song of ours that we could absolutely love, but other people may not think it's our best song. So you don't really know.
Well, more recently, you've released yet another new single, Stargazing, which is your highest streamed song on Spotify. Why do you think that one is the most popular out of all the rest?
Because it's Radio 2 all day long. It's not going to scare the straights, and it's literally just a nice, easy tune that your mum and dad could listen to. Really, it's not going to hurt anyone. That's what I expect. It's got everyone's gone. Oh, that's quite catchy. I like that. You know, it's not harmful on the ears. That's probably why.
I feel that also perhaps because it's your newest one, that you've been able to gain a following before this one, and that's why perhaps it's most popular because people have seen what you can do, and now they're kind of jumping on board with it a bit more now, maybe.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, we were quite lucky during lockdown that we had these songs already in the bag. So even though we couldn't rehearse for 17 weeks, it wasn't like we didn't have nothing in the locker to put out. So we managed to release them, and I was quite lucky that I was doing a quiz show, and a friend of mine, Ryan Dixon, he was doing a quiz on a Tuesday and Saturday night on Facebook Live, and was getting quite, up to 100 people viewing and playing this quiz. Because of copyright restrictions, he couldn't play stuff, by big artists because Facebook would take the videos down. So what he decided to do was plug our music because he's a friend and he loved it. And I gave him a pre-release of Stargazing to play on there just to test the waters. And everyone loved it and kept asking for him to play it again and play it again. And so by the time we did release it, people have heard the song and they streamed it.
That shows the power of social media once again. And if straight after this podcast someone was going to ask you to send over one of your songs to them to let them like become a fan, which would you pick?
Oh, that's a hard question. See, I would always go to Questions, but then someone else in the band would say Stargazing, and then someone else would say Not This Time, and then someone else might say What Goes Around. It's all subjective. We haven't really got a favourite song or one that. It's like your babies. You love them all. They're always going to be your own. So I don't know. There's newer stuff that I think's the best stuff we've ever done. This is not out there yet. So I always get excited for new stuff. I don't tend to look back a lot. I always think my best song's never written, so it's keep moving forward. Once the tracks are released and out there, I've sort of forgot about them. I'm straight on to the next project and carry on with that. So I would personally go for Questions, but that's just me.
On the topic of the next project, what can we expect from the Independent Music Club for the rest of the year or going into 2021?
So I've got a blooming wasp right next to me. What a git. Hold on, mate. Let me get rid of it. Good eight. Typical when it comes through the window. I'm sorry. So literally after we finish this Zoom, we're in the studio tracking drums for the next EP. So we're going to try and track a couple of drums tracks tonight and then next week as well. Hopefully towards the end of November, we're going to release a new EP, which I would say is going to be a little bit different than the last EP. Maybe a little bit more mature. And a little bit more soulful, I'd say.
Well, I saw that, obviously I said earlier again, that you are supporting the Cove Sets in Southampton quite soon. What can we expect from that? What are the live performances of the Independent Music Club like?
it's been a long time since we've done a live performance because of lockdown. I would say they're quite entertaining. I'm not someone that jumps around. We're not one of them bands that throw ourselves around the stage. It's all about the music for us, really. So we're a lot more. The rhythm section really comes through a lot more when we're live. The bass and drums, such a driving force in the band, that really shines live. And the guitars are just bigger, I suppose. So yeah, we're kind of 3D live.
So are you a kind of band who would go on and just play and just expect everyone to listen to the music? Or can we expect like light shows? Because in a sense, the electrical synthy sound makes me think that a light show would suit you.
I'd love to have a light show. But whether we got one of them at the minute is a different question. But yeah, I think that would add to us quite a lot, having a light show. We are one of them bands that come on and just play, but with a light show would enhance the experience a lot more, I would say.
As many other people that will tune into this, will be looking forward to your next releases. But I'm going to end it with one more question, which normally we get a fairly good answer. The best one so far was the first episode. But anyone who's new to your band, why should they listen to you?
Because if you're fed up of the stuff that's out there at the minute and don't understand what's going on, and you just want to listen to some old school music that will take you places, just listen to us.
Perfect answer. Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.